You remember this journey for the rest of your lives. Not fondly. You remember it the way you remember a terrible sickness you survived. It's the tail end of the century, 1799, the last full year before a new one. And the two of you are younger than you'll ever feel again. Married in the spring back in Wheeling, with most of your family standing witness. And now you're here on the far side of the Ohio River, following a wound cut through the forest, walking and riding south toward a place you've never seen but have heard about in every letter for 2 years running, Limestone, down on the Ohio across from the Kentucky shore. That's where your husband's older brother went first, out ahead into the unknown and see if a life could be made there. And it could. His letters came back full of it. Good bottomland, a real landing crowded with flatboats, neighbors, a church going up. A cousin followed him out, then the old neighbor from 3 farms down, the one who taught your husband to set a fence. One by one, the people you knew went west and didn't come back. And now it's your turn. The two of you, newly married and bound for the family that's waiting at the end of this terrible road. That's the thing that keeps your feet moving. You're not traveling into nothing. You're traveling toward people, toward a brother who'll clasp your husband's hand at the landing, and a cousin's wife who'll show you where the water is and how the winters go. There's a whole life assembled and waiting for you down the river. You just have to survive getting there. We call this Zane's Trace. Your husband keeps calling it a road. It's not a road. Colonel Zane's men came through only a couple of years back with axes, felling trees and following the old native trails where they could, and what was left behind is barely wide enough to walk. No wagon can pass here. Everything you own in the world is on the backs of 2 horses and your own 2 spines. A few tools, a bag of seed corn, an iron pot, your mother's quilt. Everything else you left behind in Wheeling or gave away to people who wept to see you go. You walk in front most days. He leads the horses, and you talk. Oh, how you talk. Because the talking is the only thing that keeps the woods from pressing in on you. 20 miles a day if we're lucky, he says, more to himself than to you. William made it in, 9 days? 10? His brother. He says a name like a charm, like proof that the road has an end. And he said there'd be places to stop, log taverns mostly, but stone ones too, real ones. Only a couple of those the whole way down. Rare as churches out here. A stone inn. You hold the thought of it like a coal cupped in cold hands, because you've heard the other things too. The things people say about the trace when they think a new bride isn't listening, that men have gone missing on these lonely stretches, that the isolation itself is the danger, that a road with no witnesses is a gift to anyone who means harm, and that harm rides these hills the same as anybody. You've slept on the bare ground since leaving Chillicothe, taking turns, one of you always awake, listening to a forest that never goes quiet. You started to understand that out here being alone is the thing to fear, not the wolves, the being alone. So when your husband says the next stone house should be real close, a real building with a roof and a fire and other human faces, you find yourself praying to reach it before dark, the way you've never prayed for anything. The light is already going amber through the trees when you come up the grade and you see it. Stone. Actual quarried stone. Smooth sandstone. Blocks. 2 full stories with chimneys standing up hard against the darkening sky. After days of nothing but timber and dirt and your own 2 horses, it hits you like the sight of a cathedral. Somebody carried those stones here. Somebody cut them and squared them and stacked them out here at the edge of the whole world and made a permanent thing. A promise that this trail was going somewhere, that other people had come this way and meant to come again. You didn't know a building could make you want to weep. This one does. Inside there's firelight and the low sounds of other voices, traders, a mounted man carrying letters south, another family bound the same direction as you. There's a tap room on one side, warm with the smell of whiskey and wood smoke, and a sleeping room on the other. It's rough. The floors are plank, the fare is plain, and you'll share the room with strangers. But there's a roof, there's a door that closes, there's a wall of stone between the 2 of you in the dark, and after 4 days on the trace, that stone feels like the safest thing you've ever touched. And here's what you do that night by the fire. You ask everyone. Do you know the landing at Limestone? Do you know a man named William? Came out 2 years back? Most don't, but one trader nods. He's been down to the river. He's seen the boat. He says the town's real and growing, only a few more days on. And that's enough. That's everything. A stranger by a fire has just told you the place you're walking towards actually exists, that your husband's brother is not a story, but a man in a real town at the end of a real road. You lie awake that night, not from fear this time, but from the strange, swelling largeness of it. A few more days. The brother who went first, the cousin, the old neighbor, all of them waiting down in the water. And between here and there, thank God, there are places like this one, islands of stone and firelight and an ocean of trees. In the morning you'll settle up and shoulder your packs and walk back out into the forest toward the river and the family and the life that's waiting. But you'll carry this night with you the rest of your days, the night the stone house on the trace took you in. That's the experience thousands of travelers had at places just like this one behind me. But here's the truth underneath it, and the truth, in this case, is almost as interesting as the story. Zane's Trace was real, and I'm standing on it, and it was exactly as rough as you'd imagined in my telling. Blazed in 1796 and 97 by Colonel Ebenezer Zane. It ran more than 230 miles from Wheeling, Virginia, now West Virginia, down to Limestone, modern-day Maysville, Kentucky, and in those early years was barely passable, foot and horseback only, no wagons. As the decades passed, taverns came to dot it every few miles. By 1830, there were more than 75 of them strung along the route, but most of those were rough log affairs. Stone inns were rare and precious things, and only a couple of them stood on the long stretch between Chillicothe and the river, which is exactly why, to a frightened traveler coming up the grade at dusk, squared sandstone walls didn't look like a tavern at all. They looked like salvation. The stone inn behind me was a real such inn, still standing out past Morgantown, off of a country road in the western hills of Pike County, and today we call it the Eager Inn. But here's where I have to step out of the story and begin to be straight with you, because the history is honestly a little tangled. Local tradition says the Eager Inn was built in 1797, and that's the date you'll see on nearly every sign and website, the date that would make it one of the oldest buildings in the county. But the people who studied it for the National Register weren't so sure. The earliest surveys of the land weren't until 1798, and their best guess is that the inn went up sometime after 1805, as Virginians poured westward and the trace filled with traffic.